Once I've got everything substituted into the equation, now it's just a matter of crunching all of the numbers. So this 3 squared is equal to 9. 5.08 squared is 25.8064. Then I'm going to multiply. Typically, when I have all this kind of stuff, I usually do it in a couple stages. You can do it in one step if you're careful with your calculator, making sure you're respecting all the order of operations and everything. So we've got 2 times 3 times 5.8 comes out to 30.48 times the cosine of 49, which is 0.6561. Once I've done that, I just plug it all into my calculator, and I come out with 14.81. Now, in order to get a on its own, right now I've got a squared there. I want to get down to just a. So now I need to do the square root of both sides. So I've got the square root of 14.81, which is equal to 3.85 centimeters. Okay, so that's side A. Now let's go ahead and tackle one of the angles. So let's look at angle B. Okay, so angle B is equal to the arc cos of B squared minus A squared minus C squared, all of that divided by negative 2AC. So that's the formula, sort of the reworking of the cosine formula. Now we'll go ahead and substitute in some numbers. So we've got the arc cos of B squared, which is 3 squared, minus A squared, which I just calculated, 3.85 squared, minus C squared, 5.08 squared. All of that's divided by negative 2 times A, which is 3.85, times C, 5.08. I can go through, I'll do the extra math, I guess. So 3 squared is 9, minus 14.8225, minus 25.8064. All of that divided by negative 39.116. So if I crunch all those numbers, I end up with the arc cos of 0.8086. So now this is where you take your calculator and you do your shift cosine on that number, so the arc cos, and you should end up with 36 degrees. Angle C is the last piece of information we don't have. So angle C, again, is just going to be using that altered cosine law. So using arc cos, and since we already got it, I'll write it out. C squared minus A squared minus B squared. All of that divided by negative 2AB, close bracket. And now I can go ahead and put in all the values. Arc cos of 5.08 squared minus 3.85 squared minus 3 squared. All of that divided by negative 2 times 3.85 times 3. Gives us the arc cos of 1.9839 divided by negative 23.1, which is the arc cos of negative 0.0859 And if you put that in your calculator, you should end up with 95 degrees. So yeah, so the final step that I would typically do now is I do the check and I look and I see what are the three angles that I've ended up with. I've got 49, 36, and 95. And so I can add all those together. And when I add them together, I end up getting 180. So I get 49 plus 36 plus 95, and that equals 180. So that final check isn't required. And like I said, is if you were on a test and you want to get it done, you can do the 180 minus 36 minus 3.8, minus 49 to get that 95. You can do that. But what this does is it gives you some assurance that you've done everything correctly. Because remember, to get to this point, you've had to use this A value, which you had to calculate. So if you did something wrong in the A value, you'd still get a value for the angle B. And then if you use the 180 minus angle B minus angle A to find angle C, it would work. It would give you a value that looked correct. But if you'd started off with the wrong angle or the wrong length for A, then your angle B is going to be wrong as well. And that'll make your angle C wrong. So it's just one way of making sure you're more likely to get the right answer at the end of it. But absolutely true, intuitively, logically, you can use that knowledge of 180 minus the two angles gives you the third angle. We're going to go on to 5B. This time we're given three sides, 12 centimeters, 6.5 centimeters, and 8 centimeters. And we'll go ahead and call this A, and this B, and this side C. So that means this is angle A, this is angle B, and this is angle C. So I'm going to go ahead and calculate. Start here with angle A equal to the arc cos A squared minus B squared minus C squared divided by negative 2BC. Substitute in the values. Arc cos of 12 squared minus 6.5 squared minus 8 squared divided by negative 2 times 6.5 times 8. And when I crunch out all those numbers, I end up with the arc cos of 37.75 divided by negative 104, which is the arc cos of negative 0.36298. And if we run that through our calculator, we get an answer of 111.2 degrees. So that's our angle A. Moving on then to angle B, the process is essentially the same, it's just the formula changes slightly. Angle B is equal to the arc cos of B squared this time minus A squared minus C squared divided by negative 2AC. Substituting in the values, we have the arc cos of 6.5 squared minus 12 squared minus 8 squared divided by negative 2 times 12 times 8. If we crunch all that out, I'm going to say I won't bother writing out every step. We end up with the arc cos of 0.86328, which is equal to 30.3 degrees. Okay, angle C, so we could do the subtraction, but I'll go ahead and I'll do it the long way. arc cos, this time of c squared minus a squared minus b squared, divided by negative 2ab. Substituting in the numbers, we've got 8 squared minus 12 squared minus 6.5 squared, divided by negative 2 times 12 times 6.5, which, if we crunch that through our calculator, we end up with the arc cos of 0.78365. And putting that through our calculator, we end up with angle C is equal to 38.4 degrees. (5C), similar to the last one in that they give us the three sides. 5.48 centimeters, 5.1 centimeters, and 5.31 centimeters. And for convenience, I'll say this is A, this is B, and this is C. So that is C here, that is B there, and that is A at the end. So angle A is equal to the arc cos of a squared minus b squared minus c squared divided by negative 2bc. Substituting in the numbers, 5.31 squared minus 5.1 squared minus 5.48 squared divided by negative 2 times 5.1 times 5.48, which is equal to the arc cos of negative 27.8443 divided by negative 55.896. So we're looking for the arc cos of 0.4981, which we can do on our calculator, and we come up with that angle A is equal to 60.1 degrees. Angle B, arc cos b squared minus a squared minus c squared divided by negative 2ac is equal to arc cos of 5.1 squared minus 5.31 squared minus 5.48 squared divided by negative 2 times 5.31 times 5.48, which is equal to the arc cos of negative 32.2165 divided by negative 58.1976, which is the arc cos of 0.5536, which therefore angle B, when we do it on our calculator, 56.4 degrees. And finally, angle C of 5.48 squared minus 5.31 squared minus 5.1 squared, all divided by negative 2 times 5.31 times 5.1, which is equal to the arc cos of negative 24.1757 divided by negative 54.162 which is equal to the arc cos of 0.4464, which, if we work it out, therefore angle C is equal to 63.5 degrees. And if we want to do a quick check, take 60.1 plus 56.4 plus 63.5, and we add them all up, and we end up with 180 degrees. Okay, last one, 5D. Got a triangle again, and for this one we're given a side and an angle in between them and a side. So I think the key piece of thing to remember with this rule is you need the side, the angle in between, another side. So you've got side, angle, side, side, angle, side. So the cosine law helps us in that circumstance. It doesn't help us in other situations. Okay, let's see how it all plays out. So we're going to call this is side A here, side B here. So that makes this side C, that makes that angle C, this angle B, and that angle A. So again, keep in mind, the angle letter is opposite the side letter. So angle A is opposite from side A. Angle B is opposite from side B. So it's important that you name everything correctly so that you get the formula correct. So moving along then, let's first of all find the third side for C. So we've got C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared minus 2AB times the cosine of angle C. I can go ahead and put in those numbers. 8.58 squared plus 12.08 squared minus 2 times 8.58 times B, 12.08 times the cosine of angle C. Multiplying all that out, 73.62 plus 145.93 minus 207.29 times the cosine of C. Sorry, I should have put in that angle C in that last part there. Cosine of C, which was the cosine of angle 112.4. So when I calculate it out down here, I get the cosine of 112.4 is equal to negative 0.381070. Go ahead and do all of that equation in my calculator, and I end up with 298.54. That's C squared, so I need to get down to C, so I have to take the square root of 298.54, which is equal to 17.28. All right, so I've got three sides now. Now I'll go ahead and find the remaining angles. Angle A is equal to the arc cos A squared minus B squared minus C squared divided by negative 2BC. So the standard formula. Now I'll go ahead and say it's the arc cos. Putting in the numbers of 8.58 squared minus 12.08 squared minus 17.28 squared. All of that's divided by negative 2 times 12.08 times 17.28. That's the arc cos of negative 370.90 divided by negative 417.48. Doing that in my calculator, I end up with 27.3 degrees. So that is angle A. What angle are we missing? We're missing angle B. So the last calculation is the arc cos of b squared minus a squared minus c squared times negative 2 times a times c, which is equal to the arc cos of, substituting in the numbers, 12.08 squared minus 8.58 squared minus 17.28 squared. All of that's divided by negative 2 times 8.58 times 17.28. Doing the math, negative 226.29 divided by negative 296.52, which is equal to the arc cos of 0.76315, which is equal to 40.3 degrees. And if we wanted to do that check, we would take our 40.3 degrees and our 27.3 and our 112.4, and we'd add those together, and we would see that they end up to 180. So let's just do that. 112.4 plus 27.3 plus 40.3 is equal to 180 degrees. Okay, that's a run through of question 5, A, B, C, and D.